an incredible panel here today. People that are working in all walks of life, but working to help protect the right to vote in all of those arenas. The thing I like so much about this film is that it connects the dots in really important ways and shows in ways that I haven't seen in other kinds of films the concerted national effort designed to suppress the right to vote. And it shows that all this rhetoric that we've heard about so-called voter fraud or so-called common sense measures to prove your identity at the polls ain't nothing about common sense, it's nothing about voter integrity, and it has everything to do with suppressing the growing political power of the rising American electorate. What we have seen around the country is growing political power amongst communities of color, women, and young people. These tactics we saw in this film were coordinated efforts to target that growing political power. Because you can't talk about the right to vote in a vacuum. It's not just an exercise or an activity. It's a means to build power, to achieve change in your community. When we have the right to vote, we are able to exercise self-determination. And that is why I always say that the right to vote is fundamentally about dignity. Here we are 1 week before the 5-year anniversary of the murder of Mike Brown and the uprising right here, not very far from where we're sitting right now, that started to show that rising political power, that started to show what happens when communities step up and fight back. The right to vote is the structural mechanism that we have to turn that into actual policy decisions. That's why I say the right to vote is about dignity. It is the structural mechanism we have that tells people they matter, literally that they count. And so when the right to vote is denied or abridged, what does that tell you? But I'm also very hopeful. I'm hopeful, number one, because people are finally starting to connect these dots and see that the true fraud that is going on here is the fraud of so-called voter fraud. And they're starting to see that this is a concerted effort to deny people their rightful voice in their communities. I'm hopeful because we've seen the collective power of the people at the polls.
And it's really sad when you don't have a policy platform to stand on, so you have to resort to tactics to then have less people vote for the other guys because they obviously have a better platform on what people actually want to vote for. And so one of the things that we do is we help get voters to the polls. We actually use volunteer drivers to drive people to the polls. We do voter registrations. We do voter education workshops so that people can understand things that are on the ballot and things of that nature so that when they go to the ballot box, they know exactly where to go. They have a plan to get there. They actually can tell their friends and neighbors how to vote, things of that nature.
We have to now learn how to reconceptualize what voter registration and voter mobilization looks like. We have to reconceptualize that. We can't keep looking at the same model and think that is work. So the faith community does have a role. Our role have not changed. And if I'll be so bold to say that the faith community is the covering of everything that happens in our community. And so once we put ourselves back in that spot and not be afraid, I'm going to say that again, not be afraid to do what we've been called to do, and that is to strengthen, to revitalize, to empower.
As Director of the Board of Elections, I will tell you that from the inside, it's a scary, scary scene. You start with people being, disenfranchised at the voting box. But you have to understand that people are being disenfranchised from registrations. Yeah. It starts when you get ready to sign on the line. sometimes those registrations are accepted, sometimes they're not. Sometimes you didn't cross the T, sometimes you didn't dot the I. And that's a reason to reject your registration. So when you start, you have to look at the very beginning of this voter suppression playbook that's going on. It starts from the very beginning. I remember when President Obama was first elected, and this was I'm dealing with St. Louis County. I'm dealing on a local level here. There were people who stood in line in Velde City till midnight, okay, to get to vote. And why? Because there was not enough voting places. The place was too small. These are suppression tactics. If you can't vote in 15 minutes, you got to get back to work. You got childcare. You got all these other things. You're not standing in line till midnight.
When our democracy is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When our democracy is under attack, what do we do? When you look across our state, our democracy is constantly under attack. If it's women's rights, if it's a war against the poor, or if it's trying to suppress us to have the opportunity to vote, they're constantly trying to take our rights away. And they're very clear. Like you say, when you look in the film, they don't hold back. Them blacks, them Latinos, them illegals, the non-citizens, they are blunt with it. And they have a message that they say over and over. If you want to call it a lie, to them it's the truth. It's definitely a lie to us because we know the reality, right? But one thing is they're on the message. And one thing that our side, however you want to look at it, we separate too much. I just say the people, not Democrats, not Republicans, not black, not white, but the people. What we need to start doing is being just as aggressive. We got to quit playing so nice. We got to quit being so tedious to say, ooh, I don't want to say that because it may be taken out of context. You see the things that they say during this film? And you see the results that they're getting, right? Our approach don't have to be in hate. Our approach can be in love. But we have to be 100% and we have to be direct on what we're trying to get across. So I'm excited to be here, but looking at the film, I don't know about y'all, I'm fired up.